I think it didn't start as pre-planned. I just knew that I was an active member of my political party. We started initially not as a political party. We started as what they call the Tanga Tanga Squad, who are people who are supporting the candidature of our current president to run in the 2022 elections. So the formation began at that time. It was a group of like-minded people, and we actively worked together. And as things unfolded, I got involved in just the usual political affairs. For example, I was part of the Inua Mama Jenga Taifa women's movement. We went across the country, not only promoting women empowerment, but also galvanizing women's support around our candidate, Dr. William Ruto. Thereafter, there was the BBI debate came in, and I was heavily involved in that. I had a very strong position. I was anti the BBI, the constitutional amendment, because it was not done in accordance to the law. There's nothing wrong with bringing a constitutional amendment, but I had an objection with the manner in which it was brought, in total disregard of the law and the procedure as established by our constitution. So I got involved in that. So I didn't plan that I'm going to get involved in this. We were just rolling with the punches as they came. Yes, when we were isolated as the Tanga Tanga Squad, and we were kicked out from the leadership positions in Parliament. I was chairperson of delegated committee, delegated legislation committee. I was then de-whipped from that position, and so things just unfolded. Nothing was planned, because who would have thought that my own political party would remove me as chairperson, yet I had been rated as the best performing chairperson. So yeah, it just happened. We got involved in the BBI debate, and soon after that, issues relating to our candidate was sidelined, and we came in to continue to protect his image, his name. Sometimes we realized that there was a wrong narrative being sold to the Kenyan public, and as a leader, I owe it to the people who elected me to ensure that they have the right information at all times. Hence the reason why you saw me actively appearing in the media houses, because that's also part of how you run a campaign machinery. Because what people will normally do is attack your character, attack your vision, attack your candidate. So you can't allow them to be the only ones occupying that space. So yes, I did decide that was something I could do, and I did. I think most of it starts also with the leadership, and the leadership of the main candidate, who was Dr. William Ruto. He's a highly organized person, highly disciplined, extremely focused when he's going to get something done. That sort of also blends itself into the rest of the team. And what happened is in the team is things fall into place naturally. For example, I am not a very good politician when it comes to coming on stage and moving crowds. That's not my area of expertise, but we have people in the team who are really good at that. But if it is debating on legal issues, on the rule of law, on policy direction, on decisions of the executive and the manner in which things must run, I'm good at that. So, and discussing current affairs, government policy, government structure, that's an area of my expertise. So you'll see that I sort of fell into that because that is what I know. And when it came to hitting the road on the campaign rallies, I didn't do that. There were other people of our team who are really good at that. As part of working towards the campaign, there is things that happen, and one of it was that you're preparing to interact with IEBC, you're looking at the systems they have a liaison with the political parties. So because I'd worked in IEBC before, I knew the only way I can support my political party is to give my time and expertise to help in that way. as other people are giving expertise in different other things. Yes, yes. I think for me, I realized, I know that I did end up spending a lot of time on the national issues, and the fear had been that my people would be upset about it and say, you're not on the ground as much as we would like to see you. I'm not campaigning as much. And in fact, some of my opponents attacked me and said, Gladys is not campaigning. And I said, of course I'm campaigning. When I fought the BBI, that was a campaign. Yeah? When I appear on television to take a position on national matters on behalf of the people who elected me, that's campaign. Because they didn't elect me just to sit back and hang out in Eldoret. I am their representative. So, and I thought that people would be swayed by that. But people understood very, very clearly. They were acutely aware that the country was going a certain direction, and they expected me as one of their leaders to step up and take a position on their behalf. Because all of them can't have voices in parliament. All of them can't have voices on national television. They can't have voices on radio. They did, I was able to take a position. When the issues of BBI came in, I remember I did YouTube videos where I was explaining clearly to those I represent and the citizens at large what the legalities are, why it was wrong, because for me I feel that's part of my responsibility as a leader. Yes, but you know, interestingly, the people got it. And then of course, considering that the president is from Uasin Gishu County, that is his unwavering support base. So of course, they knew that the larger focus that we had is to also support our candidate to become president. I was greatly honored. I was honored and humbled. I truly appreciated the way the people of Uasin Gishu treated me. They were very clear in their minds, and they said, they would tell me, what are you doing here? You know, go there and help Dr. William Ruto get the presidency. We don't need you here. And at some point they made a joke and they said, don't worry, we have your certificate. We have your synodate. Synodate is the green wreath that you're given, the symbolic one. And they said, we'll even have it, hold it for you, and wait until you deliver the presidency of William Ruto. So that was the joke. And I remember I flew home to go and vote and flew back the same day and went straight away to Bomas of Kenya, because we also understood that one of the most important things in election management as a candidate is that you have agents at every station, and that the agents are properly trained, and that the agents are well prepared, and the agents returning the documentation that you need. Because it's one thing to say my election was stolen, or that there's something went wrong. You need to have the evidence to back it, and that's why your agents are there. Your agents are there to make sure they bring back the Form 34A, to be there during the announcement, to be there to compare the results. And if there's any problem, they can be able, there's a hierarchy. They know exactly who to call. So you will have those at the polling station, and then you will have someone they report to at ward level, someone they report to at constituency level, and someone they report to at the county level, and someone they report to at the headquarters. And for the presidential elections, you basically have to have those at the polling stations, and then from the polling stations they turn in their results to chief agent, presidential agent, and then those 290 across the country are the ones who send it now to the central command center, where you do check the results, so that by the time you get to Bomas, you are comparing what our agents gave us, what is on the IEBC portal on the internet that everyone was saying, and what has been physically delivered by the IEBC returning officers to Bomas, and confirm that there is no discrepancy. And that was part of the biggest task that was ongoing. It took about 96 people who are working on 3 shifts to help us get that done. The process actually didn't start at Bomas. The process started long before that. Remember, as the IEBC prepared to run the election, they engage with agents from various political parties. So, and very much so with the, you'll find that for the presidential agents, they did interact here in Nairobi. And they had already set up camp in Bomas of Kenya and sometimes at different places. For the other candidates, they did it in the county and the constituency election officer's office. But the one for the presidential, the meetings were in Nairobi. And the press were there. I think all of you were there. So the process started from when they explained to us how the electronic transmission of results happens. We went and they had several meetings and did demonstrations for us. So I attended those meetings, and as a deputy chief agent, we together along with other deputy chief agents that we had at the time when they were loading the electronic identification kits, we went to the warehouse. It was part of the meetings. These were meetings that were formal, and all the 4 presidential candidates were represented. In some cases, the actual candidates attended. And we would go there and they would explain to us exactly how the kits were being loaded, how it would reflect when it gets on stage. So we would ask questions like, now that you've loaded this kit with the entire county register, then how sure are we it can't be interfered with en route to where it was? And that's where they demonstrated to us that it has a barcode that sort of says which county it belongs to. They explained to us that the entire register for the county was in every kit. But when it got to the polling station, once they scanned the QR code using the kit, which is on the ballot paper and on the result form, on the manual register, it would then lock to the polling station and isolate the rest of the data. So we were able to see if the system is secure. And that was the essence of the engagement. So if anybody tells you they were asking questions at Bomas, those questions we had the entire year to ask because we attended those meetings. There were times when we had, even when the ballot papers were being printed, we were allowed as political parties to send agents to go to the printing plant to actually interrogate the packing list and confirm that there wasn't any failures in the system that could cause the result or the process to be compromised. So everyone was in the loop. I can guarantee you that. We negotiated on everything, every step of the way. You may have noticed that at some point there was the issue where they had printed 2 result forms. And upon agreement by the agents of all the 4 presidential candidates, we agreed that one of the result forms would be decommissioned and not used at all. So we were part of the process the entire time. So Bomas was just the end result, but the entire year we had similar meetings. There were processes like training the agents. There were processes like when we were in Bomas, it wasn't just me. There were so many of us. We had teams of young people. You must have seen them on the floor at every table. And their job was when the returning officer brings the result, the Form 34, the original, which is the actual result, they then needed to check that it's authentic, and we were using UV lights. So you may have noticed that at some point, one of our team members had to go and buy us UV lights because IEBC had just 1 per desk and it was slowing the process. So we bought more and were able to help them speed up the process. They were checking that and being able to confirm. And if there was a discrepancy, then me as one of the team leaders would then go there and raise the issue with IEBC. When the announcements were made with the results, There was even a time when they announced that our presidential candidate had 51,000 votes in a certain place, but our figures were 41,000. But it was a typographical error that was made by the person reading it, and we corrected it. So it wasn't that, so it was just to make sure that the process went clean. But also, as you go through the process, you're also collecting evidence for the Supreme Court. Because we had no doubt in our minds that we were going to win. But I also had no doubt in my mind that our opponent was going to petition against our win. So the important thing is to collect the evidence. Hence the reason why you saw that all our agents at all the 47,000 plus polling stations had smartphones. So what they needed, what we had trained them to do, we told them, when the counting is being done, you're part of it. And you make sure you sign the result form if you confirm the results. You can also sign the result form and say, I dispute the result, it's allowed. And then after that, when the announcement, the oral announcement is being made, you make sure you take a video of the oral announcement by the returning officer. And then when the result form, you take a picture of it on your phone. But remember that with IEBC, they were using the machine which could read the QR code on the result form, and then it would be dispatched directly to the portal. So we just had a double check system, our own video and our own photograph of the results. And then they had the hard copy of the result. And we said, the moment you take a picture of the hard copy result, also send it to our headquarters, so that even if somebody took away your phone, you've already dispatched it. So we were clear, we were organized. We knew that we left no room for any doubt. Hence the reason why when the petition were filed, we had no worries at all, because our bases were covered. Within 2.5 days of voting, we actually knew the exact result, as accurate as 6 votes away. Yeah, and it's easy to do, because there is 700 maximum, 700 people voting in a polling station, max. So counting 700 votes is not difficult. And remember, you're counting with the community in the room. You show them the result and say, whose is this? Raila Odinga, you put it aside. Who is this? William Ruto, put it aside. Wajakoya, like that. Once you make the hits, you then start the counting, and you all count in unison together. It's hard to make a mistake. In the past, the Kenyan electoral system used to be such that you could have 10,000 people in one polling station. Or if you had people voting in different classrooms, the ballot boxes would be carried to a different classroom or one hall where they would be counted, and things could change hands in between. But now, our current electoral system is foolproof. And I know it because I was part of the team that designed it. Because after the mess up with the Koivutu team, the team that I belonged to, the Hamed Isaac team, we designed the new system. And the new system was designed in accordance to the recommendations that were given by the Kriegler Commission of Inquiry. So Kenyans had a chance to say how they want their electoral system to be. And our team was just an implementer of the views of Kenyans. And that's a history people forget. It is not Chebukati that decided the electoral system. It was Kenyans when they gave their views to the Kriegler Commission. And the reason why it was put at 700 people maximum per polling station is because it was asked how many people can vote in one polling day when the polls open at 6 and close at 5. You have 720 minutes. It's assumed that everyone takes an average of 5 minutes to vote. But that means only 144 people can vote per polling station. And so the design to have 6 clerks was deliberate. It means 6 people could be processed at any one time, which means the 144 would be like times 6, bringing us to around about figure of 700. So that's how the figure of 700 was decided by polling station. It was precision science. And This was recommended by Kenyans after the past history where you would have 3,000 people in one polling station. So many of them would go back home because they wouldn't vote. And sometimes, even if the voting was still continuing, it was dark, someone could cause mayhem and people would panic and run away. So that decision to have 700 persons per polling station maximum was a design to ensure that we cure the mischief that existed in the past. If you look at the decision to have electronic voter identification, was because in the past, our manual register had dead people on the register. There's nothing wrong with having dead people on the register or people who are living abroad to be in the register. The problem was those people did in fact vote during those days. So with the electronic voter identification, it means you need my fingerprint to pick me out and allow me to vote. And you can later tally the number of fingerprints lifted and the number of ballots that have been cast. They can't be more, they must tally, yes. And so some of these systems were actually on account of the challenges we had with our electoral system in the past. So when you had me many times telling some of the people who believed that they could penetrate the electronic system, the voting system of Kenya, I said, it's not, you cannot. Because if somebody is dead, you can't go and get their finger from the morgue, right? So it's foolproof. There was also the issue of the electronic transmission of the provisional result. The reason why that was, again, recommended under the Kriegler Commission was because Kenyans, we didn't want a 2007 situation where nobody told us what the result was. And then suddenly, the electoral chair went to a dark room and announced to Kenyans that this is the result. And then mayhem broke. So what we wanted to do is carry the people as you count, so that when one polling station finishes, they send in their 700 people result. If it's 200 people, they do that. So that slowly, Kenyans were counting along with the Electoral Commission. It also protected the commissioners from a situation where someone could hold a gun to their head and tell them, announce this result, which I think is what happened to Kivuitu. Because there was a blackout in Kenya, all the media stations went blank, and suddenly, only using the KBC, an announcement was made. So it's that's why it's improved. 2010 we piloted it when we had the referendum and by-elections. Then in 2013 it was perfected, and the Supreme Court gave some recommendations. The law was amended, the systems were amended. 2017 there was a great improvement, and I think they are almost at 95% this time in 2022. There are a few things that lessons have been learned, and probably when the Commission prepares their exit report, the current chair, as he's exiting, as he's required to do, he'll be able to even recommend further if there were any challenges that they saw and what changes need to be made to the system, so they can now completely improve it. But I can tell you, I've since traveled after the elections, and people are in awe of the manner in which Kenya's elections were conducted. And for me, it fills me with great pride because I was part of the team that started this particular journey. I should have seen it coming, because I remember on many occasions during the time we were at Bomas, during the 6 days, at some point there was an attempt to attack me by TJ Kajwang, and he said, I had photocopied the duty roster of my team members, and I was taking it to the security guys so they could be cleared, so they would change shifts. And they said I had the results on my hand, and they attempted to attack me. And then I thought to myself, I actually showed it to them. I said, this is just the duty roster. But now I realized, later I was informed that they had wanted to cause mayhem so that they could suspend so they could suspend the counting. I remember at some point, one of my team members was attacked. He actually asked me to go away, because I told them, if you need something, just send me a text, because I was walking around. So he sent me a text and says, I'm in distress. So I walked to him and I said, what is the problem? and suddenly he was attacked. It was on video. A sitting member of parliament grabbed him by the neck, pulled him, and the others hit him. They took his phone in full glare of the police officers, including the current Inspector General of Police, Gabo. Those people have not been arrested for assault to this date. And I walked away. And the young man later said to me, "But Mom, why did you let me be beaten?" I said to him, I had seen what they wanted to do. They wanted me to get involved in it. There would be an altercation, and hopefully they would injure me so that I could leave Bomas. So I walked away, because by then someone had warned me, they are trying to pull you into an altercation. So I walked away. Unfortunately, the young man, John Minor, was attacked. But for a good cause. I told him eventually, this is how you can't get something good if you, sometimes you got to get some pains and injuries. So thereafter, I now learn. At that time, I didn't know much about it, but I later learned that they had been an orchestrated plan. And I think this, I'm quoting, it's not my own words, I'm quoting the affidavit of the chairman, Chebukati, where he explained that he was approached by members of the National Security Council, Advisory Council, and told to change the result. So I think when the result wasn't changed as they wished, they then, I think, thought plan B is cause mayhem and make sure that the result is not announced. That is actually, but I think in full circle everything will come out. But for me, the affidavit of the chairman made me realize what was happening. At that time, I was just on the job. I knew we needed to complete the counting on time and verify the results, make sure all our documentation is ready. So every time we verified one result, IEBC would give us a copy, and we would evacuate them out of Bomas and take them for safekeeping, because we knew our lawyers will need it should we go to the Supreme Court. I remember one security officer, and I don't know his name, never met him before, but he advised me and said, "Gladys, don't leave Bomas. If you walk out that door, you're going to be picked up and you're not going to be taken to the police station. You're going to be taken to Ngong Forest." So I heeded his advice, and I decided I wasn't going to leave Bomas. And after that, I was escorted to the bathrooms if I needed to go to the bathrooms. And I still remember one night, my driver called me. He was in the car. And he said to me, there are some people who have come to the car, and they said they want to search the car because my car has suspicious materials. And I told him they can't search the car unless I'm there. So I told him, just tell them the owner has to come, but don't say it's me. And I asked him, who are they? He told me they're dressed in green uniform. So when I asked, it's actually, I didn't even know that was the uniform of the anti-terrorism unit. The question is, what was the anti-terrorism unit doing in Bomas and searching my vehicle? Later I learned that they hoped that I went out and they would search my vehicle and claim that there's something in my vehicle, and then they would pick me up and get me out of Bomas. And remember, if you're picked by the anti-terrorism unit, they can keep you for several days without bail. So I told my driver, just don't say it's me. So my driver said, he's coming. The owner is coming, pretended I was a man, and I think they realized it wasn't my car. So they went to the next car. And actually the next car next to me is the car that was reported as having been broken into. So you could see they were trying to lure me to go outside to the car. But and once they left and went and broke the other car, I told my driver, drive my car out and leave Bomas. And so I stayed inside. After that, I told him to come back in a taxi and not to use my car. They did also at some point, I remember someone came to me and said, Murkomen is calling you outside at the door. And then I said, I just ignored him. And then somebody else, a different person, came and said, Murkomen is calling you. And so somebody asked me, Gladys, you've told you Murkomen is calling you. I said, Murkomen has my phone number. And why would he call me to go outside? He can walk in, he has a pass, he can come and talk to me, which is what he was doing at other times. So At that time, I didn't know how much danger I was in, but I now learnt about it. So they say God looks after children and fools. I was a fool the whole time. So I think that's what made it was good to be oblivious of all the plans, because I just thought I was just there to do a job. For me, I knew what my script was, what I was supposed to do, and what I was supposed to assemble and give our other senior chief agents. No, there were 3 actually, belonging also to other team members. They later passed a rumor that they had found suspicious documents on that laptop, and it was given. They eventually said the DCI, I think, had it, and they wanted us to go and collect them. But I said to myself, once a third party has handled my laptop or anybody else's laptop, my advice would be don't take it back. Because it was not taken under secure circumstances that you would know that they haven't interfered with it. The good thing today is you can take my laptop, but I can remotely disable it. So it serves no purpose to you. So for them to even say they accessed it, that is a lie. There was an attempt to push a narrative that there was something suspicious being done, that the Kenya Kwanza agents were involved in some form of fraud. But how anyone can even believe that kind of narrative, especially senior political leaders, is mind-boggling. Because remember, the announcement had been done at the polling station. The voting happened at the polling station. The voter identification happened at the polling station. The counting happened at the polling station. The announcement happened at the polling station. So whatever was happening in Bomas was just to repeat what happened at the polling station and collate them. It was pure math that was being done. And it was not only Bomas doing the math, the whole world was doing the math, because they already had it. So to even come up with a scenario like that didn't make sense. And the explanation for having laptops was very simple, or tablets or phones, because we couldn't get our team to carry 47,000 forms, copies of the forms from our agents, to Bomas, times 13 desks, because we had 13 desks. You can't print that amount of paper. It just makes sense in the modern world to scan all of them, have them on the laptop, so that you do the reference, because we are referring to the form from our agent, the one that was on the IEBC portal, in comparison with the one that the returning officer from the constituency returning officer had brought to Bomas. Physical, the hard copy. We were simply comparing. That's what tallying means. So obviously, our opponents didn't understand what tallying was, because that's what you do. They were busy walking around Bomas with huge phones and huge power banks with no comparative material whatsoever. So all they could do is be suspicious that we had tablets which we were using as a tool. And eventually when they took the laptops, because I realized they wanted us to stall the counting, I told my team members, let them keep them. If this is going to cause the delay, let them keep them. We'll load them on our telephones, because you can still have the same figures on their phones. And that's what we did eventually. Let me Google it for you. You know, I've heard somebody say that that was a bad word, it was not a good word, or that's derogatory. Actually, the dictionary meaning of hot air in the Oxford Dictionary, it's basically, if somebody says, if it's not practical, it is insincere and untrue and not factual. That's what is the dictionary meaning. So it's not a bad word. It's actually an English expression, correctly used. It's in the Collins Dictionary, it's in the Oxford Dictionary. So that was not a bad use of word. It was just a descriptive word of what had actually happened. At the Supreme Court, what was important was the Form 34A that was announced at the polling station. That is the final result. So even when one claims that I was involved in intercepting the results from the porthole, amending them and reposting them on the portal, I would have to be a magician. I wish I knew how to do that, because then we wouldn't even need to campaign. First of all, when they explained how we loaded, when they came up with that narrative, it showed that we had actually intercepted, amended, and dumped 11,000 forms in 23 seconds. It's not humanly possible. First of all, it's not even possible to intercept a form. And remember, this is a form that has that is an image. It's an image copy. It's a scanned copy. So, and it's handwritten. So how do you edit it? First of all, the handwriting is. Imagine you'd have to edit it, change the names of the. I can't even imagine. I mean, it's the most preposterous allegation that I've ever had. And to think that you can actually take that to the Supreme Court. Because the Supreme Court are not, they know this. So that was it. So I said, at one point I said, forget what was on the porthole. After all, the final result is the form that is the original, is the Form 34A that came from the polling station. So let's forget that, because that's a provisional result that's on the portal. Let's just have that original one, the one that came to Bomas on foot, so to speak, not by internet. So there was no, tell me the discrepancy on that. And when you say that there's a discrepancy, you must say, my agent gave me the result, the portal has this result, and this one that has come to Bomas is not correct. And even then, when you want to challenge an election, you have to discount each Form 34A to the tune of a figure that brings the result below 50%, or that reduces your margin. So even if it reduces your margin by a certain figure, if it's not sufficient to overturn the win, it's neither here nor there. Yeah, so I think it was a learning. I kept telling myself, do they know this? And I said that they do, because they used to attend the meetings of the briefings. So they were just making up stories, and they knew they were being untruthful. And I think what happened to me is I was so caught up in our candidate, our Kenya Kwanza candidate, winning the presidency, that I never thought of any position. I just knew we've got to win this election first before we can think about anything else. So it was when we had won and Bomas was done and the Supreme Court was done that we talked with a few friends, and they said, and one of them suggested, like, Gladys, but you're very good at your legislative work. Why don't you? I think you'd be, Parliament is a place for you. And there were other discussions, and yeah, I said, okay, that's interesting. And when I spoke to members of my political party, they gave me their full support. And our party leader also gave me, and deputy party leader gave me immense support, for which I'm greatly humbled. So it wasn't a long-term plan. It's like I was in Wasingishu over the weekend. For the last 2 weeks, we've had a cancer screening free medical camp for women for cervical cancer and breast cancer, and for men prostrate. And many people said, you've started work so early. Are you thinking of going for governorship? I told them, I don't think like that. For me, I think about doing the job I'm supposed to do to the best of my ability. And I always throw in all my strength and all my energy. And then the rest makes itself. And I always tell people, I believe in what this, she's a Christian author. She says greatness comes from service. And I believe that. If you just serve, the rest will sort itself out. And for me, what gives me pleasure is serving now in that current position. Because I look at somebody and say, why are you talking about something else? You haven't even performed to the best of your ability on this one. No, I never compare myself to anybody. And for me, whatever job I'm supposed to do, I have a spirit of excellence upon my life. I always do it to the best of my ability. Sometimes the best of my ability may not be good enough, but I can assure you it's always my best. So that, you tell me to cook, I do a good job of it. You tell me to clean my house, I do it thoroughly. Yeah, you should ask my housekeepers. I find that they haven't found. So that's me. So it's just, I don't, because if I don't do something well, I feel bad. I'm not happy. But when I do it well, I feel good. So it's also about how it makes me feel. Yeah. So sometimes when people do a bad job, I think, how do you sleep at night? Because I wouldn't, yesterday I was called, I wasn't going to go to Eldoret yesterday. And I get a call and I was told that the people who'd been found to have positive cancerous cells were worried. What will happen to them? How will they get treatment, now that they've discovered? And they were worried. And I said, it made me feel, I said, it's me who's brought this upon them, because I'm the one who encouraged them to come for the testing. Now they can't just go home and not knowing what will happen. And so I said to my office, get me the next flight to Eldoret. And I left at 12 o'clock flight. I came back on the 7:30 flight. But at least I went to meet them and tell them, we have a plan of how you'll get treatment. We were able to tell them that we're going to talk to some doctors. And many of them, actually, they've been caught at a very early stage. And it's curable. So I knew, and my sister said to me, don't kill yourself rushing into it and rushing out. I said, no, I won't be able to sleep at night. To think that there are some people, I can imagine if it were me diagnosed with cancer and not knowing the next step, it's a frightening experience. One of them was a 30-year-old girl. And so I said to myself, no, I'm going to go, I'll get to Eldoret, speak to them, assure them. And I came back and I slept very well last night, because I just thought, just giving them that assurance. I did have a month ago, 6 weeks ago, on my Shujaa Day, I had a free legal aid camp. So basically people who had land cases and succession matters. We had a team of 120 law students who are helping me. And then we had probably another 50 lawyers who came in, mobilized them. We just did it in the field, in small parts of the tent. And people told us their cases, and I can tell you, almost 60% of them, we realized can be resolved without having to go through the court process. And in some cases, I just said to them, it doesn't matter how long you go to court, you can predict the outcome of a case. Like I tell them, if it's a succession matter, the court will divide it equally among the beneficiaries. So why go and deliberate? Because there's no beneficiary who's larger than another one. In the village, people assume the boys should get a larger share. And I told them that's not the law. Yeah, so when you explain to them that, they said, okay. I said, why don't we sit down and you agree on the division yourselves and record a consent in court. So there's a lot of cases that it was highly successful. I'm excited that, and now I have more people who are actually volunteering. Many lawyers in Eldoret. Yesterday, one of them, Mary Koech, who used to be in my class, came and said, Gladys, I can help you. So I'm now asking lawyers, can you take up 2 cases pro bono, 3 cases? Because those who suffer are those who can't afford lawyers. Those people who clog the court system are people who can afford lawyers and can keep making application upon application. Also, we'll be helping the judiciary by removing cases that should not be in court out of the court system. So that's something I plan to do. The medical camps I had started before COVID. But when COVID happened, all the medical camps were suspended. And I'm happy that now, so it's something that had been pending for me to do. Some people said to me, Gladys, you've started working very early. I said, it's because I owe a debt to the people of Uasin Gishu County. They voted for me for free. I wasn't present all the time. So for me, because I've finished the task that was keeping me away, I'm happy to be back and serve them. And it makes me happy. When I'm not at work, my life is pretty regular, like any other mother and wife at home. I have 4 children, 2 grown-ups, young adults, and then 2 young ones, teenagers, a preteen and a teenager. So I have 2 generations. Yeah, so When you get home, it's the same thing. They lost their sweater at school, now they don't have a sweater. Then I'm not very happy because I can't keep buying these expensive uniforms every so often. Or they've forgotten their lunchbox or something has gone wrong. Or the usual thing, I'll be called by the teacher and say, you know, he was involved in some naughty things at school. We need to be summoned and talk to as parents and to talk to them. Taking them swimming, taking them for a walk in Karura Forest, which I like to do. You know, so it's the usual regular things. I love cooking and I'm a good cook. I don't always get as much time as I'd love to do it, but when I do, the kids are happy about it. So sometimes they ask me, you know, Mom, cook for us this. When I was at the farm recently, my son said to me, I've been eating matumba, but it doesn't taste exactly the way you make it. So I said, okay, when we slaughter something, just let me cook it for you. And then I told him, but now I have to teach you how to do it, because you can't always rely on me to do it. You're grown up, you're 25. Yeah. So it's the usual things. Or coming back from campaigns and getting home and finding that some rooms in the house had cobwebs because I hadn't had time to look at it. You know, people don't work too hard when you're not watching, so yeah, so it's just the usual. Yes, I'm bringing in a motion relating to the body cameras for police officers, because police officers, I think all of you know, they terrorize people. I mean, every young person is flagged down and has to give money. I've sometimes seen somebody who's been flagged down by the police, and I actually stop and ask the police, what is it you want from them? Normally they're asking them for money, even if they have done nothing wrong. So I think that has to stop. The way the police handle people when they go and report something at the police station, especially women and young people, they are rude. As you know, I've never had a police officer say, "Unaenda wapi?" Have you seen that they talk to you? I don't know if they train them to speak like that. What's wrong with saying, "Excuse me, madam, this is the wrong route to use," or "Excuse me, madam, you are actually overlapping," or something. Or you find them banging on your car with a stick. I've never understood that kind of behavior. It must be a training, because I don't see other people behaving like that. So when they have body cameras, they'll be more careful about the way they speak. I like it when you travel to other countries, the police comes to you and say, "Excuse me, madam, may I see your driving? I am officer so-and-so, may I see your driving license, please?" And they give you back your driving license. But you know what they do here? The moment you give them your driving license, they actually walk away, and then they extort you, you have to give them some money for them to give it back to you. Some of them even walk away with your driving license. Yeah. I remember once telling my daughter, let them keep it. Just drive away. Because that's not the right behavior. If something is wrong with my driving license, just if it's expired, then book me for driving without a driving license, isn't it? Or even sometimes you reprimand the person and tell them you better not be on the road again. That's the way you deter people. So that has to change. So yes, I believe that the only way to deal with our police officers to become more professional is that they should have body cameras. And if you're doing the right thing, you shouldn't be afraid to wear a body camera. Anybody who is interacting with people must be able to be accountable. See, in the courtrooms, etc., we have to use technology. Same thing, instead of having police officers, as I was happy to hear the CS Murkomen saying that they will use technology to police our roads. Because if you look at the amount of money collected by our police officers just standing by one road, if there were cameras there and that money goes to the state, so that you receive your ticket, you pay your fine, by the time you become a third offender, the next time you're booked in and you get a custodial sentence, you also lose points on your insurance like other countries. So these are ways of deterring people. Then we also don't have a wastage of police officers being on the road when they could be doing other important duties, yeah. And the number of roadblocks. People will tell you to drive maybe 30 kilometers, you'll be surprised you could have 4 police roadblocks. It's a waste of resources to have the police being there when it can simply be done by technology. I'm still passionate about the pesticide ban. I'm still pushing that. I got a successful approval by the last parliament, but we still have an incorrigible Pest Products Control Board that has refused, despite orders from parliament, to remove those harmful pesticides from the market. So now I'm seeking their removal from office for reckless endangerment of Kenyan lives. I think it's important to encourage young people that no matter how things are difficult for you, no matter how things don't seem to be going your way, don't give up. Just think of that challenge at that time. I always say I think of it as a bump. You know how you go over a bump and land again, then it becomes smooth again. And life isn't about, you'll never always have a smooth sailing. You'll have challenges. I've had many challenges in my life, but I haven't allowed those circumstances to define me. I always believe I will define my own circumstances. I will tell my own story. I will not let anyone tell my story. I know that there's been things written about me, and I remember I refused and I said, that is not me. That person you're writing about is not me, because I know who I am. When people in the judiciary tried to put trumped up charges of corruption against me, I said to and I remember my mother wondering, why aren't you shaken? I said, because it is not true. If it was true, I would be worried. So sometimes people are faced with those kind of challenges, and many people give up. Sometimes, I mean, you have a situation where you lose your parents, you lose a loved one, or you lose a job. It's not the end of the world. I always tell people, provided you have good health and breath in your lungs, which is God-given, believe me, you can pick yourself up again and go. I remember someone saying to me, now that you're fired, how will you be able to raise your kids? How will you? And I told somebody, as long as I have breath in my lungs and I am in good health, I will sell mitumba, I will sell vegetables, whatever it is, but my kids will never be out of school. So you have to remind yourself that. Who says you must be in a formal employment? How many mothers do we see on the roadside selling sukuma wiki, and their kids never starve? Yeah, so it doesn't. So sometimes we believe that we must be in a certain place to be able to be okay.